Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for joining us at this physical wellness workshop, how ethical meat or foods affect your physical wellness and absolutely mental wellness. We have our guest here, Brother Fahim Alwan, who has a very long experience in the meat industry, halal meat industry, and food industry in general.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. I pray that I will be able to deliver some useful information that it can help you understand how the food industry and particularly the meat industry operate. I am the owner and the founder of BlossomPure Organic. I started getting interested in this industry after spending many years in the supplement industry, distributing product across Canada to health food stores. And prior to that, I was specialized in supplying medical equipment and supplies to hospitals. I realized over the many years I've been in those two fields that what is really missing is what we are eating is affecting us. And as a consequences, people getting ill, and if they don't go to the hospital, they seek the help of the alternative medicine, take the supplement. But that wasn't really the right approach. I think our good health and physical wellness start with what we ingest and what we eat. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Al-ma'idatu baytu da, al-ma'idatu baytu da, wal-himyatu ra'su kulli dawa." What does that mean? Like our stomach is the house of diseases, and depends on the food we are ingesting. If we are eating the right food and the wholesome food, it is a prevention from any disease. Almost 95% of the meat, it is produced and raised in a factory farm. So basically, those farms are gathering thousands and tens of thousands of animals in a small confined area, expose them to inhumane treatment. The animal in general are not in a good living condition, and in order for them to stay alive, they gave them a lot of antibiotic and other substances to keep them alive. And when I remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always commanded us to consume what is halal and wholesome. And when you think about the animal life subjugated to all those stressors and food that it was not intended for them, and to live in confinement, that is not wholesome. Okay, and there is another thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he commanded us to have ihsan, which is even one of the highest estate in Islam, to have ihsan with everything, with our work, with the way we treat each other, and also the way we treat animal. And specifically, he mentioned the animal in the part of the hadith. And if you do slaughter the animal, slaughter them with kindness. Allow them to have the last moment of their life lived with dignity and respect. And sharpen your knife so you cause the least amount of pain. And as I reflected on this, I said, you know what? How beautiful it is to have product available for human consumption, that the animal had a great life and maybe one unpleasant day, the day you send them to slaughterhouse. Unlike consuming an animal like in the factory farming, have the most terrible life for their entire life, and on top of that has another bad day in the slaughterhouse.
Thank you very much. Now, you did mention that animals being fed the incorrect diet or something like that. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, in CAFO operation or factory farms, animals are fed whatever cheap feed and whatever ingredient that can make them grow faster and be ready for the farmer for the market sooner. Unfortunately, as halal industry is one of the largest buyer of meat in the world, most of the meat in the halal market comes from those factory farms. The only difference between the halal and non-halal is basically slaughtered the halal way. Some of it is done, better in a smaller slaughterhouse. Some of them are butchered or processed in a huge slaughterhouse, just like other animals. So there's no difference in terms of where the halal meat coming from. So when we talk about the feed, there are three commodities or three different type of meat is well known in the world. The chicken and poultry, beef, cattle, and lamb and goat. Each one has its own experience, the way they are fed and the way they lived and how they are processed and where they end up, going to as a slaughterhouse.
I like that you mentioned that. So can we look at the animals you mentioned, and basically if you can draw a comparison between how they are treated or their whole life cycle or lifespan in the conventional farming method and their lifespan and their life cycle in the organic or ethical system of raising these animals.
Mm-hmm. I will share some of my experiences with the farmers I dealt with, some of which I realized they were factory farmers. And when I realized that, I decided to stop dealing with them. As it's known in North America, there's about 9 billion birds raised every year for meat and for eggs. And that's a huge number. And when we think about factory farm, the way it goes, that the farmer tried to get the animal chicken ready to ship to the slaughterhouse by the age of 35 days. This is like, in the past, it's considered still a chick. And I do have an Amish farmer who raises pasture chicken for me. And we ship them to the market at 9 to 10 weeks. We're talking about 5 weeks, half of the age. And those animals are already heavy enough to send to the market. When I asked the farmer who produces such a product, and that's about 12 years ago, can you raise the animal to get a little heavier so I can use it to make deli meat out of it? He said to me, I can't do that. I said, how come? He said, because we push them very hard in the feed, and if we let them alive a little longer, they will collapse because their heart or their cardiovascular system is not growing at the same speed of their muscle. And I realized that when I actually was buying some product from him, some chicken, and although the barn only about 500 meters away from the slaughtering facility, just by bringing the chicken in crates from the barn to the slaughtering facility, about 10% of the chicken are already dead.
Wow.
And that's how horrific it is. Then when we talk about the feed in the conventional chicken contain GMO grain, which is washed with herbicide and which genetically modified. It does help the animal to grow faster, but it does not produce a good quality meat. Because whatever herbicide or pesticide on the feed they are eating, it will have residual in the meat. On top of that, in the chicken farming, in order for the farmer to contain any type of bacteria or pathogen and allow the chicken to grow faster, they wash their feed and water with antibiotic. The antibiotic, what it does, it tries to get rid of the bacteria to allow the chicken to continue to grow without having their system fighting the bacteria. What does that do? It gives them a growth spurt so they grow faster. And of course, the amount of medication is given to them, it will be definitely having residual in the meat. And as we are consuming this meat days after days, years after years, eventually the amount of the toxins coming from the meat, it will get us to a point that we start having some health issues, if not within ourselves, within our children or the second generation. Although we see a lot of evidence right now that many health issues and problems surfacing that people did not see 20 or 30 years ago. And some of it is very, very obvious. It can't hide itself, like autism.
I just want to go back. You had a farmer tell you that if he keeps the animals alive a little longer, that they would actually die from cardiovascular issues because they were feeding them to fatten them up, to grow them very quickly, and their body couldn't keep up or something?
Yes, because the way they design the feed, which is calculated by scientists and by labs, that they wanted to give the animal certain feed component that it allow especially their breast to grow bigger and faster. So when you look at those animals, you can tell they are hardly able to walk properly. And as their body and muscle grow bigger than their vascular system, the heart is no longer capable of supplying the organs with the blood. And therefore, after a certain period, it just gets exhausted and the animal collapses. And one of the reasons why they grow faster, because the unfortunate reality that the chicken farmers, which I wouldn't really want to call them farmers, they are more of a chicken investors because they hardly deal with the animal. They try their best to get the animal ready to the market, even if it means that they do not allow the animal to sleep. So they keep the light on in the barn, so the animal cannot have the ability to rest and relax. And while they are awake, they continuously eating and drinking. And that's why it is extremely stressful on them that they are unable to rest and unable to walk properly, because as I mentioned earlier, in factory farming, they allow only 1 square foot per bird. When they grow to 30 days or even 28 days, you'll find the bird large enough cannot move from their area. And if any of these birds were weak and collapsed, they will die sooner or later.
They'll basically get trampled and
Exactly.
stepped on by the other chickens.
That's correct. And another experience I had, we were supposed to go and meet a turkey farmer. And I was going with the animal welfare agent that a store requested that in order for them to carry my product, the animal should be coming from farmer who treat their bird properly. When we got to the farm, although the farmer was expecting us, we walked into the barn and we saw so many dead turkeys on the ground, and the farmer did not even bother to remove them. And that's how sad the situation with the chicken. The feed is not the greatest. Their feed washed with medication, and the animal also with the feed, they still allow feeding animal byproduct. The leftover from the slaughterhouses, they send it to a certain company to make it into fertilizer, and the other part they mix it with the feed. And also they give them chicken manure. They put it with the feed as well. So the chicken really is the dirtiest eater. And therefore, if somebody wanted to eat chicken, my advice, refrain from eating regular chicken, because I don't think there's much goodness in it, but rather there's a lot of things to worry about, from toxicity, from medication, from animal byproduct, could be from arsenic, even though now they don't use it widely. It used to be one of the items or one of the ingredients in the feed.
Arsenic. Why do you say arsenic? Why would someone use arsenic in feed?
In the past, they used to allow it, especially in the United States. What it does, it has two jobs to do. Number one, it kind of create a trickle or scratch in the throat, chicken throat. And in order for chicken to feel comfortable, they keep eating to reduce that irritation.
To kind of scratch that itch.
Exactly. And the second reason, chicken, sometimes they have parasite in their body or in their stomach. And this arsenic was able to help the chicken to do the job to combat this parasite, to allow the chicken to grow without using their energy to fight the parasite. But the problem with the arsenic, it comes out with the chicken poops, where if you fertilize the land with that poops, it will spread that arsenic further. And if it run off to the water streams, then the water will be polluted. The other thing, there will be a residual of arsenic in the meat itself.
How is organic different?
One thing I wanted just to mention quickly before I jump into organic, those conventional houses, when we talk about CAFO or factory farming, the houses, they call them, can have average 25 to 30,000 chicken per house. And some CAFO operation can have 100 or 200 houses. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of chicken raised in one CAFO operation. So in the contrary, when we talk about organic, normally organic farms are much smaller. They normally raise in the house anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000. I would say as organic becoming very popular, there are farms which can host maybe 20,000 birds in one house. The difference between this and the conventional, they are given about 5 to 6 times more space to allow them to roam around. And the feed is certified organic, no hormone, no medication, no animal byproduct. My preference is to deal with small family farm who raises 3,000 to 5,000, so the farmer can give more attention to these animals. And I do wanted to mention that chicken farmers in general are really more of an investors than a farmers, even sometime in the organic industry. As organic now becoming popular, you find it in big supermarket and grocery stores, and those grocery stores which have many locations, they will not, and they are not dealing with small family farm. They need a mass produce operation to sustain their need for their all locations. Although I believe organic chicken are the much better option, but I would rather to eat and feed my customers chicken that coming from a small family farm to keep them in business as a priority for me. And number two, because I do believe they do a better job with raising these chicken. Now, as far as animal feed for the chicken, they do not give them any GMO grain, which is the stable grain in North America. Most of the grain given to chicken are either corn or soy. Both of them, about 80 to 90% of the production in North America are genetically modified, which means there is a lot of herbicide, glyphosate. They spray the plant sometime 10 to 15 times to kill all the weeds. So the grain, the corn or the soy grow bigger and faster. But when you feed the animal those grain, the herbicide and pesticide comes along with the grain. So the organic feed, it's pure, it's clean. The animal have a better life, happier than by far than the conventional produced animal. The lifespan of the organic chicken, normally when we said factory farm chicken are readily available to ship to the slaughterhouse at 5 weeks. Organic chicken, on the other hand, they are readily available between 7 to 8 weeks.
Almost double the lifespan.
Close, maybe about 50% more time. And the reason why, because those chicken, as they are allowed to move around, they don't gain weight as fast. And also, because they are not medicated, then if they ever encounter any kind of bacteria, their body will be fighting the bacteria, not the medication, as it is in the conventional farming. And if we ever consider or talk about pasture-raised chicken, which is normally raised in the spring, summer, and the early fall, depends on the area, those chicken by far are the happiest because they are raised outdoor, have access to grass, fresh air, sunshine, and also they are fed organic feed. And I think their diet and their lifestyle is much happier than the others. As far as factory farms, when they are shipped to slaughterhouses, even when they try to put them in a crate, they treat them brutally. They go to the slaughterhouse. There's no mercy shown because massive slaughtering facility, they go by the second. It's all about productivity.
All about efficiency. So they gotta get it done.
The animal doesn't mean anything to them.
Mm-hmm.
Where I know the slaughterhouse that processed my organic chicken, I was told by the man who processed my chicken and slaughtered halal by hand that they fired number of staff because they were treating the animal in a disrespectfully or harshly. Because those owner of slaughterhouse happen to be farmers as well, so they know how important the treatment of animal is. And many of the slaughterhouses, by the way, I deal with, I try to seek those who really treat the animal with mercy and respect. And this is not the case for most slaughterhouses, almost anywhere, unless you stress to them that I want you to be gentle, to treat them as a creation. But it is not an easy thing.
So just to summarize, talking about chicken, when you say conventional farming, we're talking about halal chicken, even chicken that is halal. It could be slaughtered by hand, it could be machine slaughtered, irrespective of which way it's slaughtered. Halal chicken could have gone, or most likely went through a stressful and unpleasant life, as well as a stressful and unpleasant slaughtering process or butchering process.
Mm-hmm. As I mentioned earlier, that the halal market is one of the largest consumer of meat worldwide. And in North America, we are one of the largest consumers of meat because many communities, they eat meat almost every day. Some of them, they eat it twice a day. So that isn't really necessarily the best or the healthiest, but that is the situation we are in. And therefore, in order for our halal market to sustain not only the need, but also sustain the demand for lower prices, because many of the halal consumers, as well as the conventional consumers, they are driven by prices more than they are thinking about the quality of food they're putting on their plate or ingesting. So that's why, at the moment, to my knowledge, the majority of the producer of chicken or poultry, they are, whether they use the hand slaughtering method or machine slaughtering, they sell their product as halal, although the animal been through the same journey of conventional chicken. No difference.
The only difference is that it was slaughtered in the halal method.
That's all. And there is another sad reality that some halal meat shop, when they run out of halal chicken, in order for them not to say no to customers, and if there is no available chicken in their disposal, they go and buy regular chicken and they call it halal.
Now, that's a very bold claim. Is
Yeah.
this something that you've encountered yourself? Is this something that you can substantiate?
I do have a few...
Without mentioning names
yeah.
necessarily, but is this something that you have seen yourself?
I actually spoke with halal slaughterhouses, and they told me that sometime we sell our own chicken or own beef to customers who's selling it to halal meat store, even though it's not halal.
Wow.
And that I got it firsthand from the slaughterhouse, especially for beef and lamb.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where the question of certification comes in. That's why a lot of people are concerned about something being certified halal, because you're saying that slaughterhouses themselves told you word for word that sometimes they sell meat that is not halal as halal meat.
That's correct. Certification is really good, but it's not enough. The reason why I say that, if I am selling chicken or meat certified by a third party, even by a credible one, and I decided to bring other boxed meat from non-halal source and open it in my slaughterhouse, in my store, and sell it as halal, no one would know.
Because they're not checking every
They
single
are
day.
not
They're
there. They don't
there.
have like an employee sitting in every single shop. That's where it is our responsibility as a consumer. We need to make sure we trust the source of food we are buying. We need to make sure people who are selling the meat preferably know where it's coming from. Preferably to be coming from small local farms or a small local operator that we know that person got it straight from the farm. So when you buy your chicken from a slaughterhouse produce 100,000 chicken a day, some smaller one, they do 30 or 40,000. Imagine how big the number is. And those smaller slaughterhouse, they produce or process the same chicken, process with the larger one. They're coming from the same factory farms, but their capacity is smaller. That's all. But in terms of the lifestyle and the feed and the stress, they all encounter the same life and the same stress.
Thank you. So that wraps it up for chicken for now. Let's talk about what we can argue is the second most common meat that people consume, Muslims consume, which is beef, cattle. Let's start by talking about how they are raised conventionally halal, and then how they're raised ethically, organically, or grass-fed halal.
What we said about chicken applies to the beef. Most of the beef in North America, whether it's halal or not halal, they are raised the same way, subjugated to the same confinement and stress and medicated feed, and finished on grain. The last 3-4 months, they hardly see the outside. But there's another sad reality. It hurts to mention it, but I heard it from my farmers numerous times, that when they take their animal to the live stock exchange where the bidder start buying the animal. They told me that halal buyers, they buy the lowest quality and the cheapest animal in the like a stockyard, they call it. And sometimes I don't put the blame on the meat shops. They do that because their customer nickeling and diming every pound they sell.
Because we as consumers demand the lowest prices.
Because we demand the lowest prices, we get the lowest quality.
We compromise on quality.
Otherwise, the meat shop will close their door. If they buy the better quality and sell it for less, then before you know it, they will shut down their door. So that is one of the sad things I encountered over the many years, and I heard it from a number of farmers. They say it quietly and politely to me, but I know it does hurt when we know the quality of meat sold in the halal meat store or some is not the highest quality.
If I can just interject here. Now, these farmers, do you trust their word? What's your working capacity with them? Like, someone gives you a bold claim like that. Again, how do you take their word for it? What's your relationship with these farmers?
The farmers who related that to me, I've known them for almost since I started my journey in this business, and they would not necessarily say it just to make it as a claim. They are honest about it. And the good thing about farmers, many people don't know in the city, that they are honest. They will not sugarcoat it like people in the city. So, and you know, there is another sad reality that I can share with you shortly after we talk about the feed. Let's talk about the animal right now. My story will be about the lamb slaughtering. I'll mention it when we come to lamb. As far as beef goes, they are born in the spring between March and May. And in a few months, they'll be separated from the mother. And we're talking right now about the beef cattle for the meat.
Approximately how many months? After how many
5 to 6 months.
And this is conventional?
That's conventional and conventional halal.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will be grouped with the same age, and they will be fed more hay and grass in the winter and introduce grain to them. When the spring comes, they increase the amount of grain, but they allow them to go on pasture if there is grass out there. Otherwise, they'll feed them hay if the farm doesn't have land to feed them grass. And 4 months before they are sent to the slaughterhouse, they are confined to a barn where they have a very heavy diet of grain that is not designed for them, because those ruminant, which is beef, lamb, and goat, they have 4 stomachs. And God designed it that way so they can eat grass, and each stomach break it down in a certain format to get to the point where they extract all the nutrient from the grass and they grow with it. Where human, if they eat only green salad, they will not be able to build like muscle mass, because God designed us to eat protein and carbs, right? So those animals, they encounter a lot of stress in the last 3-4 months at the end of their life, where they don't see the outside. They stand and sit on their own feces. The smell is terrible, because when they eat grain, which is mostly corn and some soy, their manure will be very runny and smells not like the normal beef. And then they are shipped to the market. And the same as the chicken, if you delay their departure to be sent to the livestock exchange and then to slaughtering, they might die because their body cannot take the stress in eating something wasn't designed for them and eating it in a huge amount. They will encounter a lot of inflammation in their stomach, discomfort, and yes, their muscle is growing bigger, but at the cost of their comfort. The dairy cows, unfortunately, when they are given birth, their calf separated from them almost immediately, within 2 to 3 days. And the reason why, because the dairy industry, it's all about selling the milk to human as consumers. And they deny the milk for the one who has the most right to it, which is the calf.
Wow.
So, and the dairy cows go through a lot of stress because the type of feed they are feeding those animals is calculated scientifically to produce the highest amount of milk. And they are milked usually twice a day. But the amount of milk, it creates a lot of pain on their udder because it, instead of being like 16 to 20 liter, some cows, they produce about 30 to 40 liters.
Wow.
So that is very painful to carry that much. And they can't wait until the milking time comes. But those calves that are born and separated from their mom and start giving formula or start shortly after giving them grain, they definitely suffer. And the mother suffer that she's separate from the baby. So when you're drinking the milk, especially from conventional farmer or conventional milk, the amount of cortisol and stress hormone in the milk, it'll be unbelievable. And that's why people try to stay away from drinking conventional milk, as it has a lot of harmful substances to human.
Let's talk about the confinement of beef or beef raised in factory farming, the numbers, the space they are given, and basically how that differs from organic or halal raised beef and cattle.
Confined operation, like factory farm, they usually give the animal the minimum amount of space because the idea is to utilize the space for the highest number of animal, where they bring the feed to them, which is highly shipped from outside, and they will ship the manure out as well. So if they can fit in one barn 500 beef, they would not do less than that. Just to give you an idea, sometime in 100 acres, where small ethical farmers can raise in total about 70 to 80 heads between the mothers, the first yearlings, and the calf after that. The same space, factory farms, they can crowd 20,000 head.
When you say head, you mean basically animal.
Animal, yeah. And which means they don't have a lot of space to move around. They will finish the grass, if there is any, in maybe half a day. Not even. In probably an hour or two. But after that, the whole area will be covered with manure, and they will be coming to the feeding bins, eating whatever hay or grain been brought to them. And it is not a nice experience to have an open space, which is great, but in a very crowded area where you can't really move around, and your manure all over or the animal manure all over the place.
So 100 acres, we're talking about 80 animals in small,
ethically raised organic halal,
compared to approximately 20,000 beef in factory farming. That's a huge difference.
It is a huge difference, and if I calculated correctly, the acres is 40 meters by 100 meters. That's almost 440,000 meter. If we divide give each animal like 10 square meter. So in 100 acres, you probably able to put at least 4,000 animal instead of 80 animal. The manure will suffocate the land. Of course, you cannot grow anything on that piece of land. But at the same time, the smell, the manure, even though you are in an open space, but those animal which is in the middle of those acreage, they will smell more manure than fresh air.
That's what they're inhaling.
Exactly.
That's basically the air.
And there's a lot of ammonia, a lot of other like bacteria, and they endure a terrible life. And what I have had as a personal experience, next to my grass-fed and ethical farmer who raised my beef, I went once to a barn right next to him. I drove by that barn 100, maybe 500 times, but I never realized that in that particular barn or two, there are animal, they hardly can see the outside, and when I looked at them, they are sitting in their own feces. I said in my mind, if anybody sees that, they would never eat beef again.
Wow.
Because it just looks very sad and looks very filthy.
And it sounds unhealthy,
And very unhealthy, exactly. So if an animal lived in a life like this, what kind of mindset do they have? What kind of stress do they go through? It's something unbelievable. And this is the story with the beef. And usually beef are shipped on large trailer to a slaughterhouse, could be few hours away from the barn, from the farm. And they get stressed out. And when they get to the slaughterhouse, they are treated like numbers. There's no consideration to their feeling, to their stress, and they use the electrical rod to push them forward, to scare them off. And especially people in the city don't really know how to deal with animals. So the animal go through a lot of stress throughout their life and the last day of their life. And that's very sad and very unhealthy for us to consume.
So we've spoken about chicken, poultry, and then now about beef. Can we direct our attention now to lamb and goat, also a popular type of meat in the Muslim community?
Yeah.
Can we start with, by talking about how they're raised in conventional halal, and obviously draw a comparison with ethically raised halal lamb and goat?
Now, most most lamb and goats, if we talk in Ontario, they are raised in smaller scale farms. It's not, the demand for them is not big like the poultry or the cows. Most farmers, they raise the animal indoor. They often breed them off season using some enhancer hormone to breed them. And that's sometimes stressful on the animal, where the natural cycle of lamb and goat to be born in the spring, and the cycle for pregnancy is about 5 months. Unlike the cattle, beef, it's about 9 months, similar to human. Lamb and goat, sometimes they give more than one baby. They give like twin, triplet, quadruplets. But the more baby they give, the weaker those babies they would be, and some of them do not survive. The ideal number is twin. But when those animals spend most of their time indoor, especially in the winter season, they are given medicated feed, and usually they give them pellets if they are not organic, conventional, and that coming from genetically modified grain that been grounded and mixed with other ingredient and medication. And when they are raised indoor, they are within close proximity. And if any of those animals get sick, and this applies to all conventional farming, whether halal or not, the other animal will get sick. And therefore, they give them medication or antibiotic, even if they are not sick, to prevent any kind of illness. And there's one thing I did not mention, I would like to mention it. About 70 to 80% of the antibiotic produced for human consumption, it gets funneled to animal raising operations. They use it indiscriminately, whether the animal are sick or not. As I mentioned earlier, in the case of having any pathogen or bacteria growing, the medication or the antibiotic will battle that bacteria instead of the animal itself trying to fight it, which slows down the growth. So the animal raised indoor, they are more likely to get sick, and therefore they need to be treated with medication. Usually the conventionally raised lamb and goat, they are separated from the mother when they are about 4 to 6 weeks, whereas in organic farming, they stay with the mother for about 4 months.
Wow.
4 months, it's a good enough time for them to become more mature, more independent, and all their necessary organs growing to the level that they can easily separate from the mom. And the mom will train them how to eat grass. And when they get to that age, normally they are separated in a different field, given very high quality, nutritious grass or feed, so they can grow nicely in a healthy way. That is, not to confuse it, this is the organic grass-fed, where the conventional, they are spending most of their life inside. And if you ever see lamb outdoor on the grass, they are mostly, they call them ewes, which is the mothers. And if you see a younger one, they are the younger animal who are not ready to be separated yet. Otherwise, all the one they are trying to fatten for the market, they keep them inside, even if the weather is good outside, on a heavy grain diet to gain weight faster and to ship them to the market sooner. Similar to the beef. Lamb are just like beef, the same for the goats. They have 4 stomachs. They are ruminant. And grain isn't what God designed for them to eat. It does give them a faster growth because it's readily available carb, like intensive carb. Unlike in the grass they need to digest it, and they will get the the nutrient from it. But I think one of the experiences I had in the past, that I went to a farmer in Ontario looking for local lamb, and I was shocked with the experience I had. That farmer had close to 1,500 heads, getting them ready for the sacrifice day, Eid al-Adha. And when I was watching, he was bringing a group after group to eat from the grain bin and send them back into the barn. The farmer brutally was hitting them after 2 to 3 minutes to go back to the barn so he can allow another group. I saw some of them bruised in their head, and they are really, really sad and depressed. This is something you never imagine happening to animals in country of abundance, Canada, where There is a lot of feed. There is a lot of grass if you want to feed your animal. But those factory farms, the last thing in their mind, the well-being of their animal or the consumers. It's all about how can we have them gain weight faster, and especially at that time of the sacrifice, they sell the animal per head, not per weight. So to them, I want to keep them alive, eat enough to survive.
So they don't want them to thrive. They just as long as they keep them alive.
So, and it was about the time of the halal consumer comes and buys from them.
Wow. So this is how.
And that is really
that was going to be halal slaughtered.
Supposedly,
that's how it was treated.
And for udhiyah, for sacrifice, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command us to get the best for our sacrifice. And if there is any condition, any defect in the animal, it's not accepted, or it's not,
I was just reading that hadith actually before we started, that if it's blind and totally blind, you cannot sacrifice it. If it's limping, you can't sacrifice it. So like the animal that you sacrifice has to be in pristine condition. So right now, in your experience, you're obviously working with halal meat because you are Muslim and the community you're serving is primarily the Muslim community and whatnot. Can you talk more? The average person understands what halal is. The average Muslim understands that halal is, the ritual of slaughtering the animal, saying Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and whatnot. Without getting into fiqhi debate, about machine slaughtering and hand slaughtering, can you talk to us about the halal slaughtering process?
The unfortunate reality that many of the animals slaughtered in the halal way, coming from factory farm, as we said, but there are some small slaughterhouses owned by Muslim. The sad thing that Muslim, instead of showing the utmost respect and the humane treatment of the animal, many of them are not as educated about this. Because we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we said earlier, that we should treat animal in the utmost respect and mercy like we treat one another. Because they cannot defend themselves and they cannot speak out. It's not the case. I remember one incident where my farmer brought my organic grass-fed lamb many years ago for one of the Eid al-Adha to a Muslim's owned slaughterhouse. And when he was unloading the animal, he saw the brutal treatment of the Muslim brothers on the slaughterhouse, and he was really shocked. He called me and he was shouting, very angry. He said, next time, never ever send me to this place. I will never sell you anything if you take it to that place.
Wow. So this farmer, is he Muslim?
He is not Muslim. And when I was he told me about the brutal treatment. And I witnessed that myself. I encountered at least two incidents. One of them very recently, about a week ago, when I was talking to an Amish farmer in Pennsylvania to process some lamb for me. And he said, is it okay if I slaughtered halal for you? I said, how? He said, well, I had a Muslim guy from somewhere in the US asked me to slaughter 200 animal for him. And he said, you just slaughter it and they'll consider halal. I said, although I respect the Amish and the Mennonite, practices, but when I'm selling meat as halal, it should be slaughtered by a practicing Muslim, invoke the name of Allah on it, and have the intention, which is like the added, benefit of these animal being slaughtered in the name of Allah to become edible.
Let me just stop you there. Did I hear this correctly? A farmer told you that someone told him, or basically had him, slaughter lamb as halal, although he's not a Muslim.
That's correct. I've said it, and I've actually had the same experience 14 or 15 years ago. I went to a slaughterhouse to perform the slaughtering myself because I did not have anybody to do it. And it was about 2 hours away from Toronto. It was snowing. And he was looking at me saying, why did you have to come all the way to do it halal? Somebody from the city of Toronto asked me to slaughter about 75 animals and just told me to say God is great. And that becomes halal.
And let me guess, that person wasn't Muslim either.
He wasn't a Muslim, no. So that is the reality, that there are some people, sadly, they sell things and people trusting them as halal, but it's not truly done the way it's supposed to be done. At least we're talking about the method of slaughtering. We are not talking about raising the animal. So that's why I think we should be really putting extra effort in knowing where our food coming from. Because if we are just trusting the person because they say it, would you trust someone selling you a car or a house just because they tell you it's good? You go further. Your health, your mental, emotional, spiritual health is more important than any material object in the world. Because you know the problem? Most people say, you have to eat some vegetable, you have to eat some green, you have to eat that. Okay, what kind of green? Is it just eating any kind of food? It got to be wholesome. It got to be wholesome. And when we talk about meat, it has to be halal, right?
What does wholesome mean?
Wholesome mean pure. The way it was grown, when we talk about vegetable or about crops, it has to be free of pesticide. It's not genetically modified. It's raised on a farm that they do not use any chemical. And that what produces a high quality, high nutrient plant. And if this plant being fed to the animal we are going to eat, then the animal been eating a high quality and clean product. And the farmer who raise or grows such plant usually raise a great quality animal that it is treated well, and the finished product, which is the meat or the dairy, it has the ultimate and the optimal amount of nutrient, especially when we talk about organically raised or grass-fed raised animals. The ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 in the highest level, where our body and our brain needs that amino acid. So that is what we're talking about. And we need to always remember that every bite is a powerful opportunity to create health or promote diseases. As per Dr. Mark Hyman in his book, Food, What the Heck I Should Eat. This is well put, well stated, that really food can either make us feel better or get sicker. Because we know, and our ancestor knew, that food is medicine. They were treating their health problem with eating good food, not just any food. Whether it's protein or veggies or any kind of food. It got to be wholesome and clean and produced in the spirit of mercy to the animal, to the land, to the farm workers, to the farmers, and to everyone got involved in the process.
So, Brother Fahim, you've shared some eye-opening stories about the unfortunate reality and trickery and dishonesty, if you may, in the halal conventional farming industry. So how can consumers like myself trust the meat that they are buying, trust the sellers, trust where their meat is coming from? Like what can we do as consumers?
I believe we all have common sense or the sixth senses. We can tell when we are dealing with anybody, whether we're buying any material object, especially something of value, or buying our food. we can tell if we feel confident and comfortable with the answer. And I think as consumer, we need to be educated. We need to ask the right question. We do not want it to sound hostile when we ask the question, because we want people really to help us understand what they do. I think one of the main questions we need to ask: where is your meat, processed or coming from? Is it in a large slaughterhouse or a small slaughterhouse? If it is in a large slaughterhouse, it's definitely coming from CAFO. Even often in a small slaughterhouse.
What does CAFO stand for again?
CAFO stand for Confined Animal Feeding Operation, where there is massive number of animal, whether it's chicken or beef or lamb. If the answer is a smaller one, say, do you know if it's coming from a small family farm? If they know, that's great. My belief that, as I mentioned, the journey of the animal, very hardly you can come across anybody who would know where the animal came from. They can tell you whatever you wanted to hear. And I want to share just an experience. I actually saw it with my own eyes. I was at a halal meat shop. They were cutting lambs for me before I got my own cutting facility many years ago. And the lady was asking the butcher, do you have any grass-fed beef? And the butcher came to the store owner asking him, oh, this lady asking for grass-fed beef. Do we have any? What is grass-fed beef? The guys paused for a minute or a few seconds. And he said, yeah, tell her all our beef is grass-fed.
Wow.
And I know for a fact it's not, because they do not know or have a clue about the grass-fed beef. So we need to trust not just what they say. We need to ask informed question. When it comes to chicken, is this like raised outdoor? Is it organic? And in my opinion, we need really to seek eating something has been certified by a third party. And I'm not talking about halal. And as I said earlier, how can you tell that this particular piece of meat coming really from the certified halal slaughterhouse? It's very difficult. So the option is we need to start demanding. We should start considering that complaining about the regulation and the corporation which is controlling the meat industry and complaining about the supermarket and the meat shop, we need to start asking ourselves a question. We are the one who have the power to make the changes. We are the one who has the money. So if you tell the meat shop that I will buy from you if you bring organic, halal, and you prove it to me. If there are many customers having the same demand, they will go and buy it. So that's why I believe trust is important, but you need to act on it. Although I believe any effort you are putting to support small farming, ethical farming, you will be rewarded for. And any effort you are using to support those mass-produced farmers, you are responsible for the atrocity they are enduring, the animals and the farmers.
Let's talk a little bit about prices. One of the biggest struggles for many people to eat an organic halal diet or a grass-fed halal diet is the price of the meat. Sometimes it's 50% more, sometimes
double or triple.
Yeah, can you elaborate on that? Why is organic halal and grass-fed halal more expensive? What can we do about it?
As I used an example earlier about raising to 20,000 heads of beef in 100 acres versus like 80. If you divide the cost of operation over the number of animal, the price will be astronomically high. But luckily, the farmers are accepting less profit, the local and small family farms, and at the same time they are able to manage with their animal and other activity on the farm, including some growing produce or vegetable, having some chicken, some layers. They are able to stay afloat and not to go out of business yet. But think about it this way. If you are going to buy a certain car brand in the market, both cars, the cheap one and the more expensive one, take you to the same place, probably at the same speed. And they might cost you the same amount of gas. But one of them twice more, 3 times, 4 times more. How can you justify that? The answer is, many of us are human. We like to look good. We like to be perceived as successful and well off and educated. Sometimes we have health issue. We keep it hidden. We don't seem to see the benefit, and it will not show right away when you eat healthy organic food. But it is proven that when you eat clean food, wholesome food, it will benefit you emotionally, spiritually, and physically. You might see it in a few months, in a couple of years, and it will reverse all the health issues that you are encountering as a result of the negative eating habit of eating food filled with a preservative and chemical and pesticide. Your health is the most valuable asset as a human. The most valuable asset, and we are responsible before Allah for protecting our health. And the only way we can do that by taking the mean and eating food. And yes, organic meat, it will never become 10% or 20% higher than conventional, because it costs about 3 times more to produce it. How can you sell it for 10 or 20%? So I think people need to adjust and understand that because their health is more important than their appearances, they need to really invest more on their food than trying to nickel and dime the farmers or the producers who produce high quality food for them.
Thank you. Let's turn the conversation, this is the last section of our talk today. Let's talk about BlossomPure Organic, the company you have built and what it stands for. First question being, what do you stand for at BlossomPure Organic?
We stand for that we wanted to make changes in this society to the better, to the betterment of humanity, to all other creation that God commanded us to take care of, including animals, including the land we live on, the water reserve that our children and grandchildren going to benefit from. We wanted to protect the land, and it is our duty and responsibility. We are not doing enough for the society or the environment. It's about time for us Muslims to be a positive change rather than being consumer, dependent on others to make those changes for us. As a BlossomPure, I wanted to build a business or operation that truly ethical, truly transparent, and built on very strong foundation where we can be successful without cutting corners, without compromising, and to be a front runner in this society and a good example for others to look up to or to follow. Because many of us, when we succeed financially, many of us often cut corners take the easy way, so they can make money sooner or faster. BlossomPure been around since 2002. We just turned the corner and we start becoming less or experience less struggle and more of what you call it, as someone say it's success, just about 2 to 3 years ago. Before that, we were drowning on the red ink every single day. We grew organically. Now, our customers, they are across.
Pastor, عشان إنه يصير هذا برأيي ما نكتب إنه it took you this long to هذا we were drowning كذا كذا. It بتنزل from your discredits you a little bit. بالعكس it could be إنه by the way we just هذا بس أنا برأيي بلاها. So my question is going to be, you answered this that you won't compromise, you won't cut corners. That was my next question, so we'll skip that. What kind of customers shop at BlossomPure?
BlossomPure appeals to customers who are looking to the cleanest, the most trusted product. Because I go to the farm until now once a week, sometimes twice a week. I do check and discuss with my farmers how we can improve our product, our breeds. I know exactly where every animal coming from. We do not buy the animal. The farmer raised them for us. So this continuous conversation and communication make the customer feel that we are not just a meat seller. And we never wanted to be a meat seller. We wanted to be an ethical food corner in the city where people come and make sure that whatever they buy from us, it is what we are claiming. So we have a lot of personal trainers comes to our store. Many health professional send their client to us. We have many medical doctors who sending their client to us. We even have quite a few NHL players. They shop in our place. We have one hockey club in the city where they buy all their protein from us. We've been shipping to Ottawa and Montreal for the past 14 years, but our number of customers are growing. We had launched our online store just recently. We relaunched our store just recently, and we are offering free delivery across the GTA, and we can ship anywhere in Ontario. So we have customers who drive for 3 hours every month to shop in our store. We have customers who drive 45 minutes and passing by many other organic stores to come to us. The reason for that because they felt our consistent message. They felt our message is consistent. We are straightforward. We do not sugarcoat what we say to them. When our farmer does not have the animal, then we don't have the product. And that, yes, sometimes is disappointing when they come to buy certain cut and it is not available. But that can tell you we are not buying our meat from a factory in boxes to make sure it's available. We'd rather say we don't have it rather than lying and buying it from somewhere else is not truly organic or grass-fed.
So definitely you're not willing to compromise quality just for a sale. If the product is not there, you're going to say it's not there. You're not going to buy a random beef on the market just to sell.
That's correct. We will not compromise not only quality, we will not compromise telling them that this coming from our partner when it's not. So we wanted to make sure, and I tell that to my customer and to my staff. I tell that to my staff. We do not lie. We do not have to lie. people trust us because we are honest, and we want to keep it that way. So if we don't have the product, we'll just decline and let them know when we get it in. If we have a different product, for whatever reason, we have to disclose exactly what the difference. And that's where the credibility comes.
So let's talk a little bit about your transparency as a business, as BlossomPure Organic. Why do your customers trust you? You're telling me customers come they drive 3 hours, drive 45 minutes, and pass by different organic stores, but they still choose to come to BlossomPure Organic.
The reason for that, because I can share with them my weekly experience. My staff can share with them their experience when they went to the farm. They share with them my updated experience whenever I go to the farm, and I tell them what is available. And I try to get videos or to take videos and picture every time I go.
How often do you go to the farm?
I go once a week religiously.
Wow.
And that's actually my time away from the city. I do visit my farmer, but I recuperate from all the hustle and bustle. And when I see the animal and talk to the farmer, it just ground me again and remind me with my message that I need to keep going.
Do you remember the number of kilometers that you have driven in your 19-year journey?
If I can do a quick calculation, I put roughly between 50 to 60,000 kilometers a year. If you multiply that by 19, you are close to 1 million or a little over 1 million kilometers. But what is really more significant, I was able to visit most of the local, when I say local, it's within 100 mile to 200 miles from the city of Toronto, farmers. And also I'm blessed to say that because of my positive and good relationship with farmers, they are referring each other to me, and I receive a call every now and then from a farmer who wants to sell me either beef or raise turkeys or chicken for me, because those farmers are struggling to find a partner in the city that they can trust. Because my experience when I started many years ago, there were some distributor from the city. They subcontracted the farmer to grow something for them, whether animal or vegetable. And when the time is ready for harvest, they bail out and they never show up.
Wow.
And I did help a few farmers in the past, bought their product, marketed because they were stuck. And especially what stand in my mind, the experience with Amish farmer who was organic vegetable farmer, they stuck with a lot of product that it would cause them to lose a lot of money. So I was able, luckily, to help them and market it for them in the city.
Perfect.
I pray that everyone have attended this webinar. They will try to excel in reading and finding more information and act upon it. Do not expect the changes to come from the outside. It has to start with every one of us. And you need to take good care of this body and health Allah had entrusted every one of us in. And we need to remember that if we don't, and if we get ill, the help comes from Allah, but Allah already told us what needs to be done. So I pray all of you would remember that every bite you eat, it's either create health or promote diseases. So it's our call to what allows into our body. And it is our call where we should spend our money. We need to support those who are doing good to our society and to the environment, and not to those who are pocketing the profit and directly or indirectly harming others, whether human animals or damaging the environment. It is, after all, it's our responsibility. And remember, as we always said, food is medicine. You have to believe in it, and if you do and follow it, God will provide you with amazing and wonderful result in this life and in the hereafter. There are a few documentary and couple books I would recommend for you to read and to reflect, and there will be a lot more information than what we had mentioned today. There is a book by Al-Hafiz Bashir Ahmed Al-Masri. It is Animal Welfare in Islam. It mentions almost all the hadith and ayat mentioned in the Quran regarding treating animal well and do not subjugate them to any stress or harm. Another book I found it very beneficial, especially in our days. It's by Dr. Mark Hyman, Food, What the Heck I Should Eat. It really talks about different kind of food or group of food, and it will open your eyes to what really is healthy for our body and what could be harmful to us. And is a famous documentary called Food Inc. and another one, A River of Waste. And if you want to learn more about genetically modified or GMO, the best documentary is The World According to Monsanto. It will shed the light about all the practices across the world, how Monsanto is trying to control the seeds and make the farmer slaves that they have to buy their seeds every single year. I pray that we'll all do the right thing and Allah will bless you all. And I look forward to talk to you. And if you have any question or require any other information, you can reach out to BlossomPure.com or to Fahim at BlossomPure.com. Jazakumullah khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Brother Fahim. Jazakallah khairan for joining us on this webinar. Jazakumullah khairan, and thank you to everyone that listened and watched through this webinar. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this was beneficial and full of helpful information, and you have a wonderful day.